Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast.
We are the KarWells.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah, and we are, as you know, Airbnb interior designers and investors. Well, welcome back, everyone, to our podcast. Today, we're super excited because we have two guests that feel like our Canadian twins. Today, we're hosting Erin and Heather with Pink Wall Designs out of Toronto, Canada, and they are both Airbnb investors and short-term rental interior designers. So we have a ton in common with them, and we're super excited to talk it through with them today, talk about the good, bad, and the ugly about being both an investor and an interior designer in the space. But without further ado, Erin and Heather, I will let you two introduce yourselves and kind of tell everybody who you are and how you got in the space.
Amazing. Hello. Go for it, Erin, if you want to go first.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having us on. We're super excited to chat about everything interior design and short-term rentals. So I myself have been investing with my fiance in real estate for the last 6 years. We're newly into the short-term, also midterm rental now, just with a lot of regulations coming in to Toronto and the GTA. So we're doing that. And then Heather and myself developed Pink Wall Designs and realized that there's such a demand for some interior designing specifically for the short-term rental, midterm rental space. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
And I'm Heather. Thanks so much for having us on. We're really excited. Erin obviously covered like our business together, and I myself as well have been investing in real estate for the last couple of years. I think 2015, 2016 was when I got into the market. And I specialize in like themed sort of short-term rentals as well as like marketing focused decor. So really like targeting the end user and using decor as more of a marketing and sort of experiential tool versus just making something look nice and feel good. And yeah, I have a themed Airbnb in Niagara on the Lake, and that's kind of equivalent. I want to call it like the Napa Valley of Canada, if you will, just to give you an idea. It's not, it doesn't compare, but it's like wine country. There's like 80 wineries and stuff like that. So it's like that type of vibe.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Em, I don't want to talk over you. We do that all the time.
It's fine.
Sorry.
No,
Well-
that is incredible. It's funny you say the Napa. We have like Traverse City, and we call it the Napa too. And people are like, it's not the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's not the same, but it's very similar.
It just immediately like you think, oh, okay, wineries, like weekend getaway, like you just understand the market immediately. It's just the easiest thing to compare it to because Napa, everybody knows Napa.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the Canadian side of Niagara Falls is so cool. Like it's such a funky little area in comparison to the American side of Niagara Falls. Like we drove through there a few years ago and I was like, what a funky little town. Like would go back. So I'm sure that's a great area for a short-term rental.
Definitely. And it is convenient that it's like 8 minutes from the border. So like if people do want to cross, it's super easy. But yeah, that's like the one thing for some reason the Canadian side's like way more developed. I don't know why Buffalo hasn't really done it, but it's better for Americans because the dollar is shittier on this side. So like everything's cheaper for Americans to come and like, we get a lot of bookings out of upstate New York as well. So yeah, it works out.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Well, before we kind of dive in with all of our questions that we have for you today, we start every single episode out with an Airbnb horror story. So let's start there and let's get some juicy details from you girls on a horror story that you have gone through while you've been in the short-term rental industry.
Cool. So we're going to tell a story about a client of ours. Basically, we were consulting with her to get her short-term rental, or became a midterm rental, I guess, at this point, on the market and getting it booked. And the backstory there was she was actually living in the house, got a job in California, moved out there for like, I think 3 or 6 months, had every intention of coming back, but then the job became permanent. And now she had this house that she didn't want to let go of. And she's like, what can I do? And, you know, she was like, okay, I'll midterm rental it. Cause it was in a little bit more of a suburban area where short-term rental, like you wouldn't really rent it for 3 days. Midterm made more sense. So she's like, yeah, it's pretty much ready to go. I just need a designer's opinion on what we can do with my own furniture that I already have. And we're like, okay. So right away when Erin and I hear it's ready to go, we're like, okay, it is not ready to go, but let's just see what your version of ready to go is. So we got on a call with her. We got her videos and pictures and everything. And there was like family photos everywhere. There was like rugs all on an angle. None of the rugs fit the space. All of the furniture was like sets from like 12 years ago, very oversized, like huge, clunky. And we were just like, okay, how do we tell this woman that this is like the farthest thing from ready to go? Like, it's not even anywhere close. Like, no one's going to book this place. It was very personalized because it was her personal home, right? There was an emotional attachment to it. And it was just, even some of the, like, you could see that she had sort of had the intention of like accessorizing certain areas and just had picked the wrong things. They were the wrong size. She had a huge cat tower in the corner of the living space. Like, I don't even know what you call those. It was just like disastrous. And so we were like, okay, so we'll do our best to work with, like, there were some bed frames that were like usable because they were in like not bad condition, but we basically told her, like, listen, this is what you need to do to each of your rooms if you want to get it booked. And it's you know, it's an interesting, and you guys obviously know all about it, but it's a very interesting sort of like fine line to walk, because I mean, we're not in the business of offending people, but at the end of the day, if you're going to treat it like a business, you have to hear the hard truth. And we were like, no one's booking this place. And although you don't want to invest the money up front, you're not going to get it month over month over month. So that's like the thing that people need to swallow. And I think most professional investors get that, but people who are just like converting their primary home into a short-term rental do not understand, and especially somebody with emotional attachment and all of that. So yeah, it was somewhat of a disaster. And anyway, we took her through, and we basically mood boarded each of her rooms and said, like, this is what we're going to do. And we were very reasonable. Yeah. We sourced everything very inexpensively. We were gracious with, like I said, her bed frames. And there was like a few other, like maybe end tables that didn't work where she had them. But we were like, okay, let's try to reuse this somewhere else. And we did it for a very great price. And she was like, you know what? I'm just going to have a friend do it for me. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's always them.
Yeah. And it's like, why did you start with your friend then? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So we were like, okay, good luck. And the worst part is like, she was in California. So she wasn't even on the same time zone as us, like anywhere close to the property. So Erin, we have no idea what ended up happening. I think we've tried to search for her listing on Airbnb, but have we, like, I don't think we found it. No. It can't be getting booked. Like, if it is, then like we should all go get short-term rentals in that area and put no effort into it, because it just is not. So anyway, yeah, that was a little bit of a decor horror story, because it's just, how do you sort of tell these people, like, listen, I get you lived here, and if you want to move back, then it's going to work. But if you want to sell it as a business, it is not going to work. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah. It's like that education piece, but still being nice about it, to say you need this, and then they just totally ignore it. And then it's like, okay.
Because they're like, no, but I don't need that. And it's like, okay, but then you wouldn't have contacted us if you thought it was perfect. You would have just listed it and got all the bookings.
Yeah, like, why are you hiring a professional if you feel like it's fine? Sarah and I used to say that. Yeah. We were like, when people would be like, oh, I have some existing furniture, we were like, we should actually charge you extra for us to have to figure out how to use your existing furniture. Yes. Because it's so much harder to use existing furniture than it is to just get new. And so people were like, oh, we'll save money so that we can use existing. And I'm like, I should charge you extra for this, actually, because it's so much harder.
That is a good idea. Honestly. Like...
Yeah, it's always way more work. And it's always like one of those things where I feel like you get into those conversations with people who are letting their personal opinion decide what's going to work and what's not going to work on Airbnb. And then they reach out to a designer. And when you push back on their personal design choices, I feel like most people think that it's like your personal design choices over theirs that you're pushing on them. And in reality, it's the fact that we understand what the market is accepting and the market is going after. And that's why we're pushing this like specific style or specific aesthetic. And so I feel like people just get really personally offended when like you don't have your stamp of approval immediately. And it's like, no, I could have the exact same personal style as you and I could walk in here and like say, wow, this is great. This is super livable. Like you did a good job. But at the end of the day, it's not my opinion that matters. It's not your opinion that matters. Nope. At the end of the day, it's the market and the people who are renting its opinion that matters. And if it's not going to work for them, it's not going to work for you either. Like You're not going to make any money.
It's like going to a restaurant, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure all of us, when push comes to shove, could throw something together to eat at home if it was like a live or die situation. But like, is it going to be the same as going to a restaurant? Hell no. And the reason why you do that is like, yeah, I can make myself, a breakfast sandwich, but like I'm not like a professional cook. So I would prefer sometimes to go to a restaurant, have a professional put it together, and it's going to taste way better than anything I could ever do at home. Do I have to do that every day? No, because I can get by on like my basic skills. But like, it's weird how like people just accept things like that completely. But then on this side, I think it's just a newer sort of industry. And I think people have to get through that learning curve, I guess, if you will. But like, yeah, if you're going to make it a business, like you got to treat it like a business and get the proper packaging. We call it packaging all the time. Decor is packaging for your properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's like, when we start having conversations with people when we were still designing for investors, we would always start the conversation with being like, okay, do you as, a current consumer understand the difference between a Red Roof Inn and a Marriott? Like they both have beds, they both have bathrooms, they both are going to accommodate you overnight. They all have TVs, they all have flooring, they all have walls, they all have paint, all have nightstands. Like they all have the same components, but what is the difference, right? It's the design. Like that's the period, end of story. That is the only difference between the two. And that is what pushes your price to be higher or lower and your clientele to be bougier or not. And so, I think that when people are bringing a designer in, they're saying, well, oh, okay, my current space is good enough for me. Why isn't it good enough for everyone else? And it's like, you are not everyone else. You are only you. So like to think that your opinion in this is valid, it's not. And that's why you're hiring us as the expert. And so, yeah, I totally agree. It's just this like big learning curve that people go through. Do you guys work with investors who are like originally long-term investors coming into the short-term rental space? Because we dealt with a lot of those as well.
Yeah, like we kind of have a wide variety just based on what the individual needs, but we ideally want to work with investors that already get it, right? Like this individual was kind of like passed down to us. She's newly into the short-term rental space and was just looking for like that advice. But then in the end, she didn't actually get it and understand, because we're finding that the investors that we do work with that have like sixplexes or already like numerous investment properties, they understand the money up front and the work that goes into it, right? So we're finding that those ones are more ideal to work with.
Yeah, the ones that are like, we trust you, that's why we hired you, here's the budget, run. Like, please do what you do.
Not our space.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the other thing too is like, I don't know if you guys were doing this or not, but we order everything for our clients and we manage all the delivery. Yeah, so you guys are doing that too. So that in itself is insane. Like it's so many hours out of your day. People completely underestimate it unless they've done it before. Like the people that done it before, we can tell right away. They're like, I'm not doing that. Like I cannot. And the people that haven't, we can also tell. And it's such a big part of it, right? And especially like if we need to make a quick decision on like, oh, something got canceled, deliveries get canceled, it happens, right? And then we need to source something new. Like we need to be able to just quickly do that replacement like in half an hour. We can't be able like, so for example, if it was like the investor themselves doing it, they might pick something completely different that doesn't even go with the aesthetic of the property or things like that, right? So yeah, it's a lot of work for sure. And it's just educating the people on, listen, just leave it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep your hands out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you guys end up in short-term rental design? Did you start in short-term rental design, or did you go from regular residential design or commercial design and transition into short-term rental design?
I think for me, I've always been interested in it. My mom was actually an interior designer, and I've always had an interest in it. And even doing my own houses throughout the years and stuff, it's been something that I've enjoyed. And then we started doing our own investments, and Erin as well. She was doing her own investments, and I think we both realized we had a little bit more of like we were getting like compliments, and people were asking for our advice. And then separately, we were both like, like maybe this is something that we should actually pursue. It seems that people are gravitating towards what we can do and whatnot. And then we got introduced to one another sort of blindly, actually, by her fiance. And it's so funny. We literally went for dinner with one another. We had never met, and some people would think that that's strange. But I'm telling you, the best connections get made from just those random like whatever. Let's just go and meet up. Because what's the worst that can happen? We never saw each other ever again, right? Like no big deal. And so yeah, we just like met, and both that came up. And Erin was like, I love to decorate all of my investments, and people are asking me for advice. I was telling her the same thing, but the only thing that was holding us both back a little bit was we didn't want to take on the whole project alone. And so we were like, if we could do it together, like, alleviate a bit of the responsibilities, we could make that work. And then, so I think it was just a natural transition into, the question was short-term rentals. I think we sort of gradually got there as the market got there itself, because they're still relatively new.
Yeah. You're like spot on. We both were kind of doing our things separate, and then both had actually recently designed a short-term rental, and then we both just hit it off based on the fact that we had that like passion for it, and then also felt that there would be a need. Like Dave, my fiance, we do projects together, but then the whole design aspect was where he's like, I do not enjoy this. I can't make a decision. So that's where, like, can I get your help and insight on? And then from there, we just kept multiplying and doing our own things. But now, just in the real estate investing space too. I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but it's very tight niche here. And the word just gets out. And a lot of people have kind of gravitated and are realizing that they need a designer as part of like their crew as a way to stand out in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Ours, it was like we started in 2020, and people were, because like rent, it was arbitrage we started with originally designing for, and people were scaling so quickly because rent was so low that they were like, we can't keep up with this. Like we have to have somebody else do this step for us. And then once they started to realize how much more they were making when they were professionally designed, then they started telling their friends. And so then we started getting more and more work. But it originally started with just people were like, I don't have time to like design and install this. And we were doing all the install for them as well. And that like sped up their process so much. And then the value of design kind of came into play afterwards.
That's the thing, right? Like when I think it takes seeing the numbers and you're like, holy shit, like this wouldn't have necessarily, and also the occupancy. Like we have clients where like the competing properties in the area during the dead season are dead, but then our clients' properties are still getting booked. Maybe it's not as crazy as high season, but like they're still seeing more of an occupancy overall, because when people have the choice of all of them, they're like, oh, this one's the nicest one. Like, let's go there. Like, no, So I know it's so, if we could just hand the finished results to the people first so that they could see it would be the easiest thing.
Yeah, I think I saw one of your posts. It was like, having a professional designer is not an option anymore. It's a necessity. Do you feel like you still get a lot of pushback from people being like, no, it's not really necessary? Or do you feel like now that you've been doing it for a little while, people are like, oh, absolutely?
I think the people that get it already. There is some pushback still with people. Like we've even, had consultations with people and they're like, yeah, we'll just do it ourselves. And we're like, all right, see you later. And so like there's still and you know what? I think we're finding that it's mostly the brand new people that that it's their first property. Those are the only ones, because they're afraid to spend the money and they haven't gone through it yet. They don't realize like how intense it is. And then the people that hire us kind of on the spot are like the seasoned investors, because they're like, been there, done that. I'm not doing this myself, like we discussed. So yeah, I think, sorry, you asked, oh, are we getting pushback? I think less and less now as time goes on. Like Airbnb is what now 6, 7, 8 years old. Like it's people, it's a household name now. People understand the concept, and you know, your garage sale furniture in your basement isn't cutting it anymore. And so that's why I think now is more than ever, it is like mandatory. Like Erin was saying, like you have to just add it to your expenses sheet, because you're just not going to see the ROI that you're looking for. Like you still will make some money, but like you're not going to be competing adequately with the other people that are out there, because a lot of people are getting professional design, and that's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is the difference between the side hustler who's doing Airbnb and the professional who's doing Airbnb.
Totally.
And I mean, time and time again, we've had it proven to be really the deciding factor on who succeeds and who doesn't. Because you're right, at the end of the day, especially in slow season where you see, you know, we're up here in the north too. In Michigan, the winter is dead. And on Price Labs, do you guys use Price Labs for your properties as well?
You know what? I have some partners on mine, so I don't really take care of that. But do you use it, Erin?
Yeah, like our property management. They use Price Labs, and then we also do Air DNA. You guys heard of that? Yeah, for like the comps in the area.
Yeah, so on Price Labs, on the right-hand side, they have like these 3 metrics that are like 7, 15, and 30-day, and it will show you how your property is performing versus the market as a whole on occupancy specifically. And so we get to watch in the winter what our property's occupancy looks like versus the rest of the markets. And in the winter, it's always just so flooring to me, because ours will be still at like 80% occupied and the rest of the market is like 10% and under. And we're always like, guys, like you can't afford not to add these amenities and spend money on designers, because you are not making any money in the winter. Like you can't go back and do it later on because you're still not making money. Like you're never going to make the profit that you need. So you need to account for it on the front end, or otherwise you're building a failing business right out the gate.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And like, are you going to spend more up front? Yes. But like, so is it going to take longer to make back your principal? A little bit, but like, wouldn't you rather consistent high income than like nothing? It's just so strange.
Yeah, if you start out in a sinking ship, you never have anything to reinvest in your property, so it's always going to be a sinking ship.
Exactly.
And I think that's where we're saying like the seasoned investors get it, but then the newer ones, right, they're just a little more timid. They don't want to spend that money. They want to be safe. And then they say, oh, we'll try and do it. But then the next time they are ready with another property, they realize how much work actually goes into it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. It's okay.
I think that really a lot of that just, you know, again, stems from a lot of fear, but it just seems crazy to me as well. Like the further we get into this, I mean, Airbnb was a very scrappy situation from the get-go, where it really was like people renting out, you know, rooms in their house or ADUs that they had in the backyard or whatever else. And it very much was just a side hustle. But as it's developed more and more, it's like when you're watching these new hosts come into this industry and they're thinking about it like how it existed 5 years ago or even 2 years ago versus how it exists now, it's just a whole different ball game. And so for you to jump in and think that you can be profitable without it is crazy. But you're right, it is an upfront expense. And with any business, it's like, okay, until you feel pain or until your client feels pain, they're not going to understand the solution that you're giving them. And so you're exactly right. Like with new hosts all the time, we would see them really be the ones to push back the most, but it's because they haven't gone through the process. So they're thinking like, okay, well, maybe your taste might be slightly better than mine, but I'm not paying for somebody's taste, right? Like they're paying for a soft skill instead of a hard skill, and people don't like paying for that. But then when they go through the process and they feel that pain of actually having to coordinate all of that furniture, coordinate returns, coordinate swap outs, coordinate broken pieces that come in, figuring out you know, the traffic flow and how you're going to seat everyone at the dining table and all of like these little tiny details that interior designers pay attention to just because we've done it a million times over. All of a sudden it's like that investor will go through that experience once and they'll screw it up and they'll come back and they'll be like, wait a minute. Like Emily and I were at a conference last week and we met a guy who had reached out to us for interior design services and we gave him our price. We told him how much he was going to have to spend on furniture and it was like 4 times what he was planning on spending. And so he told us no, didn't want to hire us, ended up going with someone less expensive. And he emailed us back like 2 months into it. And he was like, I want to fire this other designer. They don't know what they're doing. Like, I'm willing to pay the 4X for you to complete this. And Emily and I at that point were just like, no, like, we're not doing this. Like, we're not coming into a half completed design and like picking up all the missing pieces and stepping into a ton of chaos. And we were at a conference last week and it was the first time we ever met this person in real life. And I was like, how's your project going? And he's like, it cost more than you quoted me and it's not nearly as good as I wanted it to be. And I was like, yeah, as if I didn't tell you that at the beginning.
That's the thing. Like these, like, you know, it's funny. People understand it in certain industries. Like I use the restaurant example. Same with contractors. It's like, you know, there are some, like, I will never attempt in my life to like do any, like, I'm not a handy person. I'm not even a DIY person, but like, even if I was, like, I'm never going to try to like put new floors down in a house ever, like ever. I'll never do that. It's going to be the worst job. And so like, there's people that are like that, right? And they're just going to, they're like, okay, we have to hire a contractor for that. And then like, what can we, but it's like, if we can just stick together, all of us, like give it a little bit of time, I think that's going to start happening with interior design with investment properties. Because I think where there's the disconnect is like, can you design your personal home? Yes. Like, and it might be your taste and it might be nobody else's, or it might be great. Like it doesn't matter though, because you're living there. So if you like it, that's all that matters. But I think when it comes to like the investment side, if we can all stick together and just like drive home this education, just like the contracting industry has, and those other like non-negotiables, I think that's going to benefit everybody, because that's what Erin and I try to do all the time with our posts and whatnot. And how you sort of said that earlier, Emily, is like it isn't a negotiable. Like if you're operating it as a business, which is the second you list your property on Airbnb, it is a business because you're looking for those bookings. Like you have to treat every aspect like that, right? Like same with cleaning. If you're neighbors with your property and you want to clean it yourself, okay, you can, but like I guarantee you're doing a better job there than you are at your own house because you're expecting, those. So it's like you have to just treat all aspects like that. But yeah, I'm a broken record like with this, but hopefully soon more and more people will catch on and realize that it's just a non-negotiable like those other industries.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think people are like we all said earlier, like people think that we're putting our own taste into these properties, and that's just not what it is. Yeah. We are actually doing the research to understand what is going to sell in that specific market. So like we've designed some properties in Florida. My personal design style is not even remotely tropical. I really like masculine and like dark colors, but I will design like a classy tropical type property if I know that that's what's going to sell in that area, instead of putting my own personal design in it. And those people are like, well, no, this is what I like, so we should do this. And I'm like, no, I'm not even doing what I like in your property. I'm doing what's going to sell in your property. And so like getting them to understand that can be really difficult. So because they think that you're just putting your own taste in, and that's not the reality of the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's packaging. Like I always kind of try to say that it's truly the packaging of the property. And we need to come up as like a design team, like globally. We need to all come up with like just a tagline or something in regards to that. And anytime we get this pushback, we just need to like drill this tagline down people's throats so they finally just get it. Because like I try to do that, like Erin and I both, like on social media and stuff, we're always trying to be like, listen, it's this, it's that. But I know it's definitely a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about budgeting for your Airbnb property when it comes to furniture and including a designer. This is an area that Emily and I, like when we first started designing, we didn't have anyone to ask about how we should be pricing our services or like pricing furniture for a property. So we would really let the investors kind of tell us what they wanted to spend on furniture, and we would do our best to work within that budget. And now looking back, I mean, we don't design for other people anymore because we're too busy with our own projects, but we grossly undercharged, like obnoxiously undercharged. And so now that we've gotten into our own properties, we've really started understanding what we spend per square foot on budget, so on and so forth. But for our listeners who are considering hiring an interior designer or hiring you guys to design their Airbnb, what is like a realistic budget that includes your fee plus the furniture and supply fee that would be associated with a B&B?
It is a great question, and we discuss this all the time. And we came up with a formula, or like a generic formula. And Erin, do you remember what it is? Like what we sort of said?
We don't include our fees, like in this general. Like we do like a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom kind of guesstimate, because our fees also vary depending on what the investor and client need themselves. Like we've done just a single room design. We've done, like they just want furniture and we provide them with links. So we kind of like tether them a little bit differently. But on average, and like we're in Canadian prices too, so that could vary. But we say but we say for like a 1-bedroom, that includes your kitchen, living space, dining room, and like all the utensils and everything like that, would be around like 6,000 to 8,000. A 2-bed would be 10 to 15, and then a 3-bed plus is around like the 15 to 25K mark.
And that's like
that completely aligns with what we would spend too.
Is that like, where you guys are at? And we have even told people that up front, just based on our experience. Like we've done a 1-bedroom, we've done like a 2-bedroom, we've done a full, like the Arizona projects that we had was a 4-bedroom, and like that was pricey, and it's also in like USD. So we have to have the conversion in mind. So
I was going to say, I think some people hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, but then with short-term rentals especially, it's even more important that you get like sort of durable stuff, because the wear and tear is crazy, right? And you have like people coming in, running and jumping on the couch like they don't give a shit. It's not their house. And so, you could even, I mean, for your own house, you can obviously, go a little bit cheaper on specific things. I still think bed and couch are just two things that you should allocate a little bit more funds to. Like an uncomfortable couch is horrible. But with the wear and tear, like, and Erin quoted prices where we're still shopping at inexpensive places, but like we're focusing on that durability, So I think like, people will hear that and they're like, oh my God, but it's like, well, what do you think it is to furnish a house? Like you have to get everything. If it's vacant, it's a bed, it's bedding, it's 2 to 3 sheets, sets of sheets per bed. If you have a 3 or 4 bedroom, that's like 10 sets of sheets, or, So I think that is like very reasonable. And and then like Erin said, we put our fee on top of that, and it varies so much. Like we do have sort of like packages that we have like starter fees for and whatnot, but like everybody's so different. We'll have some places where we're designing a 6-plex right now, and then it's technically 7 units, but then the 7th unit they want to leave it alone. So it's like, okay, we subtracted a little bit because we're not touching that last one or whatever, right? So it's kind of really is quoted per project. Is that what you guys sort of started out doing?
Yeah, we would just quote it per project depending on how big it was. And again, we were grossly undercharging.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where we really were aware that we didn't want to be in the design space forever, because none of it is passive. All of it is working income, and all of it is a lot of work. Nonetheless, we loved it, but we just really wanted to rub shoulders with investors and understand this industry, and then see if we could get ourselves in a position that made a little bit more sense and took a little less time or had a larger payout than what we were getting at the beginning. But our goal was really to build up a portfolio first so we could show off our skill set and then transition into something different. And I feel like interior designers specifically have a very unique opportunity with short-term rentals. Just kind of how we've evolved in it. Design is a huge portion of the lift in making an Airbnb successful. And so for us, you know, understanding the things outside of design that go into a short-term rental, like whether a property is going to be profitable or not, hiring a photographer to capture that design afterward, or even listing it on the platforms and starting to get bookings. In my opinion, none of that is as difficult as designing and installing the property itself. And so Emily and I have transitioned into just partnering with investors and like owning a portion of the property and a portion of the cash flow. And investors want to work with us because they don't have to pay for an interior designer additionally, right? It's like the designer is one of the most important people that you're going to hire, but of course the budget is always so small for these Airbnbs that it's hard to justify having a project manager and an interior designer. So we decided to be both and kind of transition into that sort of a business model as opposed to just being hired as like a once and done situation. But nonetheless, I mean, when we were designing for other people, it was a great experience, but we struggled with pricing the entire way through.
Yeah. I think, oh, sorry, Erin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it's one of those things where you want to be mindful of their budget, so you kind of lower end it as well. But then once you realize how much work goes into it, it's like, okay, this actually makes sense that you should be charging more. So we've actually took a step kind of away. Initially, we thought we were going to hire out and organize all the assembly and whatnot, but we've kind of focused that the main core part that someone wants is strictly the design, the furnishing, and then we say, here you go. You guys can kind of find your own crew that you trust, or if you want to save money and allocate those funds somewhere else and then do the whole setup, we will be with you there every step of the way and hold your hand and hop on a Zoom call. But yeah, we kind of learned and stepped away from doing that assembly portion of it.
That part
pretty
takes
quickly.
up so much time.
I do not blame you.
No.
Yeah, it takes up so much time.
And I find people, exactly, like a lot of people just like want to do it themselves, or they have like their brother-in-law in town who's like just gonna do it. Like, you know, that is like an actual place where like if you are going to cut corners or like costs, like fine, it's to assemble a bed is not the hardest thing on earth. So if you're capable, then like fine, do it yourself. You're still you're still spending your time, so it's like one or the other. But like if you're gonna do anything yourself, do the assembly yourself if you have to. But yeah, not the choosing of the things and all of that stuff. And I was gonna add something else, and it completely just escaped me. So I can't remember.
So one of the things that we learned when we were like transitioning, because we did install, and then when I had to like move out of the country for a while, we transitioned to just designing and having them install themselves. And the biggest issue we ran into is literally every 5 minutes getting a call being like, where do I hang this piece of art? I'm sorry, what wall does the bed go on? And we give them like full on diagrams, right? Like everything is set up in the diagram where it's supposed to go, and they're still constantly on us. So like timeline wise, like how long do you give people to like follow up with you? Because like sometimes they would just drag it out, and it would be weeks and weeks and weeks of me getting like a phone call and being like, oh, what corner does this plant go in? And I'm like, pick a corner. Like it's just a plant that goes in a corner at this point.
Yeah, we're the same. We give maps with like literal instructions that like a 1-year-old could understand, and even if it's like self-explanatory, we will still write it in, because you never know, maybe you have somebody who's never seen a property before, like you really don't know who's doing it. Maybe they don't speak English, maybe like you have no idea what the situation is, so we literally like spell out everything. And we've been pretty lucky with like not having anything excessive like that happen. Like we will go back and forth, but I think how we work mostly is like once it's listed, then like we're kind of closed. Like if you have a legitimate question about something, then like yes, message us. But like once it's done and listed, and we have WhatsApp chats with our clients, so like they'll message in there and ask for things. So it's like at least it's not emails that you're having to like respond to always. It is messages still, but it's more doable in a WhatsApp chat, I think. But we've been fairly our diagrams and our maps and our instructions, I think, have been like pretty decent. But we do have in our contract as well, we have like if we go beyond a certain amount of hours of like follow up and answering, like we charge more. We haven't really had to pull that out yet. People seem to be fairly reasonable and pretty respectful, but we have it in there in case.
Yeah. And for the most part, like, it's nice to have the partnership that when someone needs an answer and it's on WhatsApp, one of us will answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like an urgent, they're calling us up all the time. So it's been nice to be able to have that like duo, one of us to answer all the time.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. It's super nice to have two people kind of carrying that workload. I know that, you know, when Emily and I first started in business together, we had so many people that were like, I don't know, it's probably a bad idea to start a business with your best friend and so on and so forth. And I'm just such a firm believer that like neither of us would have done half the things that we've accomplished without each other. Just from like the loneliness perspective alone and going through all of these like crazy situations and not having anyone who really understands it besides your business partner. But then too, just that workload alone, like sometimes you need a day off. Sometimes you don't want to answer the question. Sometimes you're not getting along with a client or whatever the case may be. And it's always so nice to have a second personality there to kind of mitigate the situation. So I totally agree. There's definitely some secret sauce behind having a business partner.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more. Like sometimes I'll see a message in the WhatsApp chat with somebody and I'm like, oh, like I need to go in and answer that. And I open it and I'm like, oh, Erin's already done it. Beautiful. And I just like forget about it. Like, so it is really, really nice to have that. And I think honestly, like we wouldn't like even just the projects thinking about like the amount of work involved, like I think probably I wouldn't have, if I was doing it solo, I don't even think I would have made it this far because it's like sometimes it can be really overwhelming. But then, yeah, to have that other person, even just to like, you know, call them and say, oh my God, I'm stressed about this, and have the other person say, don't worry about it. Like, it's going to be fine. It's like something as simple as that makes a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally
absolutely.
agree. So as we kind of begin wrapping up here, what is in the future for you girls? I mean, what are kind of your goals for Pinkwall Designs, for your own personal investments? Like, what is kind of the North Star as you look forward and think about how you're going to continue growing?
Would you like to go ahead? Would you like to?
Yeah, like we're both on the same page. Like we have this vision of obviously taking this business and being completely remote. Like it would be ideal to obviously have someone come on the team and then handle all of the ordering, handle all the things that like add up to our time. We're just obviously doing the work now to work out the kinks, get our systems in place. But yeah, we want to take this even on a almost like we're in North America right now, but yeah,
Perhaps
you want to take it global. Like we don't know, we don't have an end in mind, but we I'll let you take over, Heather.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was gonna say another big focus of ours is definitely like the more commercial side, so including Airbnbs, including short-term rentals and mid-term rentals. But I think we both have like a dream of doing a hotel, motels, hotels, like definitely. But I think like a big hotel would be amazing, like even a Vegas hotel or like just somewhere, some big hotel in like a big city eventually. I think that would be like a huge accomplishment for us. Possibly even like, you know, some restaurants or something too, like people that sort of understand like that experience decor and that like final, the end user, you know, decor, like really understanding your target market, that type of thing. So yeah, a big focus of ours currently right now too is multifamily. So of course, you know, we'll take anybody that comes our way type of thing, like if it makes sense. But and we will not turn away in like personal homes either. It's just not where we're like, you know, fishing, not what we're fishing for necessarily. So definitely the multifamily space is great. We really enjoy that. And as I said, we have a client right now in the multifamily space which we're loving. So yeah, I think hotel, possibly global, just as big as it can go. Yeah, we both don't have any ceiling for this. Like we just want to grow it as large as humanly possible, automate as much as humanly possible. And I think Erin and I both want to be doing the design, making some content and like meeting with like networking and meeting with our clients and investors, and then everything else hopefully someone else is doing.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, have the business to be like running on its own while still kind of doing the designing and content, but then also doing bigger projects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I know that like, you know, you get into designing for other people and 20% is what you want to be doing and 80% of it is not what you want to be doing. And so that definitely resonates in wanting to try and figure out how to automate and outsource the 80% that sucks up all of your time, right? Because it's like nobody wants to be handling returns. Nobody wants to be dealing with broken furniture pieces and swap outs and remembering to grab batteries and the specific light bulbs that come with the fancy chandelier. And, you know, all of those little tiny details really are what sucks the life out of the interior designer. Whereas we should be focused on being in our, you know, genius zone where we are really putting life behind these creative ideas. So I couldn't agree more. I know that is probably every interior designer's struggle, because I think internally we also are all, you know, control freaks to a certain degree, where we want things to look a certain way and feel a certain way and function a certain way. And so it is hard to delegate, but it's totally possible. It's absolutely totally
like
possible.
this, and then slowly you get like here for a little bit, and then you keep going, and like you just got to push through and stick with it, and it will happen. And actually, just something to add quickly too, which is also like beneficial to people wanting to hire a designer, is like, I was gonna say, the exciting part is like that transition has already sort of started to happen for us on a small scale, because I'm sure you guys know about this, but a lot of companies offer business accounts, and they delegate to you a professional like account executive, and you have that person on your team to like source things for you. They discount stuff for you so you can pass that discount on to your clients. So that's another thing too, right? When we're quoting for furniture, we're like, keep in mind, we get discounts at a lot of places. So like you won't get the discount on your own, but we will. And then the fee sort of just works out itself and all that. But anyway, yeah, so that's been like a major help. Like we just had one of our business account professionals swoop in and save the day. We had 6 beds that needed to be delivered to a property like ASAP. And then we just randomly got, oh, hey, we don't have these in stock anymore. It's like, and that happens sometimes, right? And so she swooped in and saved the day and sourced identical beds for us for the same price, and got them delivered in motion to be delivered. So it's exciting that we already sort of have a little bit of that happening. We just need to like keep adding those people to our team.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I couldn't agree more. That whole back end side, you've got some people in your corner when you're a designer, but we absolutely pay for ourselves. Like we could scream that from the mountaintops, whether it's the amount of profit that you're getting that's increased from having great design, or it's the money that you're saving on furniture, or the mistakes that you're avoiding that you didn't even know you were going to make. All of those things play a role in why it's worth hiring an interior designer. Even if you have sticker shock when you get a price from an interior designer, I promise you will make that back tenfold in the years that your property is running. So I will reiterate that for you over and over again. We'll continue screaming it from the mountaintops.
We need a little flag,
but thank you, ladies. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming on and talking all things design with us. I'm so excited to watch how you guys continue crushing it. I mean, we really enjoy following you on socials, and now we are e-friends. So, so thank you so much. Emily, do you want to wrap it up and have them plug all their things as well?
Yes. Can you guys go ahead and plug where they can find you if they are looking to hire a designer, how they go about hiring you guys and seeing your portfolio and things like that?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah, I feel bad. I didn't want to like jump in again. I was like, I'll let Erin.
Yeah, no, the easiest way to kind of get in touch with us is usually through Instagram, so at Pinkwall Designs. And then we also have our email contact pinkwalldesigns@gmail.com.
And that's in our bio, so it's very, very easy. Our TikTok's the exact same, Pinkwall Designs.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure it's all linked below as well, so it's super simple for everybody to find you guys, because if you haven't figured out through this conversation that you guys need a designer, I'll say it again, you need somebody to design your Airbnbs. So we'll just reiterate that again. And
the other thing too, sorry, just to tell people is it can be as casual as just like sending us a DM if they're even sort of intrigued or they have like one question. We're very good at our DMs. We'll answer them very, very quickly. We always check the requests folder as well. And yeah, if they want to just reach out there, then we can set them up with like the rest of the process. We'll give them our email. Then we have our portfolio that if they want to see it, we can just send them right away. And it kind of everything sort of starts with Instagram. Like we haven't wasted time on a website because like, I don't think people really go there anymore. We may have one in the future, but yeah, the Insta is just the easiest.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you ladies so much. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. And for our listeners, go check them out. Run while you can. And we'll enjoy watching you guys scale as you continue building your portfolio.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. And thank you to our listeners once again for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.